Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bigfoot Odyssey, and it's Sunday Conversations Stroke Encounters. We're sorry a little bit late. We just had a few technical difficulties, but our guest is here tonight. But first, hello, Jackie. How are you doing?
Hi, Daniela. Doing really good.
Doing good. And our guest from is Northeast Oregon, I think you said. It's Papa C. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Daniela.
Good. Thank you for coming on tonight.
Yeah, yeah. I was putting that up in case you guys ever got bored. So,
We're not bored. We're not bored. I want to know about. I know you've do some research and you've had some encounters. I'm not sure what you want to share with us tonight, but like I say, it's a stroke Sunday conversation, stroke encounters. We're just talking Sasquatch. I'm interested to knowing what people think. I know it's just opinions, but those people that are going out there and doing something and having experiences might know, something that someone else doesn't know, might have experienced something that somebody else hasn't. So,
Absolutely.
how did you get into Sasquatch?
well, I've been running around in the woods here in Northeast Oregon for about 53, 54 years. Since 1968. Nope, 1964, sorry. That's when we moved here. I was born in Idaho, and then we moved here to Northeast Oregon. Actually, I lived down on the Palouse for a long time, just over the hill, right on the very edge of the Palouse and the Blue Mountains, and over by Walla Walla, Washington.
Ah,
And then we moved over here, and that was a whole different deal, seeing the mountains and stuff. So I got pretty excited about the mountains and ran around in them all the time. What happened to really get me exposed out there was after I got out of the Army, I got mad at the whole world and became a hermit in the woods. I think there's still Vietnam vets running around out there.
I know Alaska's full of them.
Yeah. Sorry. Forgot what I was doing. And then I started having a jillion experiences, but for 50 more years, I would not believe that there was such a thing as a Sasquatch out there. I couldn't figure out what was making all the noises. And I couldn't figure out what had made 50-foot teepee structures. So,
What sort of noises? What sort of things were you hearing?
oh my goodness. It started out in 1968 on a field trip. We were rescuing a girl, carrying her out of the mountains, and we heard screaming up on the hill. And it was a scream like I've heard. See, now this is other people's experiences help me. It's same pitch as a coyote, but it sounded like a woman screaming. And then above that, at the same time, was a whistle. And then also down below it was a howl, more like a wolf howl. But all three of them came together in such a way that they resonated in such a way that it made your ears itch whenever they would scream. And there was three of them, and they followed us all the way out the canyon that night. We were in a long 4-mile meadow, and I think they followed us about 3 miles out of it, screaming on the hill above us. And a friend of mine said that was Sasquatch, and oh, he caught heck from us. We laughed at him and called him dummy, and of course I was looking and going, that ain't a coyote, that's not an elk. Plus there was 3 orbs behind us. They were about the size of a volleyball. They were white and ever so slightly tinted blue. And we were arguing about whether it was some people camped up on the hill. But how could, I caught that one as how can they be floating up higher than where people could reach, and how come they're tinted blue when every light we got in the whole world in 1968's got a hint of yellow in it?
Oh.
All of our lanterns and flashlights were yellowish.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so all of that followed us down to the edge of that meadow. And the thing I keep for the orbs and the screaming paralleled us on the hill above us, and the orbs just stayed about 200 yards behind us to the side on the edge of the hill. We were in and out of little groves of trees, so we couldn't see them all the time, but every now and then I'd spot them and go, yeah, they're still back there. They're still moseying along. They would drift along like this. They didn't do any of the fancy stuff. They just drifted slow. And the thing I keep forgetting is we were stopped to fix the straps and put some straps on the litter we had made for this girl we were carrying out. And by taking off our belts and tying them, hooking them in a loop, tying them in a loop, I think a clove hitch even, and sticking our arms in there, and that really helped. So anyway, when we got clear down to the bottom and everybody else got down there, we rescued the girl, we got down there, and I asked the one guy, did you tell the teacher about the Sasquatch? It was a field trip, Earth Science field trip. And I said, did you tell Mrs. O about the Sasquatch or the Bigfoot? We hadn't heard of Sasquatch then. And he said, yeah. And she said to never speak of it again, and because we would be never get to go on another field trip up there, and we would be ridiculed. Both of those things would happen.
Wow.
So by the time you asked him that question, you had obviously believed at that point what was following you. Definitely, like, were you part of ridiculing him originally, and then by the time that you started ruling out all the sounds, were you like, okay, this is nothing I understand?
Right. That's where I was by the end. I remember just before we dropped down off of the edge of the hanging U-shaped valley and went down the switchbacks. When we did that, everything quit following us, and our flashlights started working again. See, because right up in the beginning, when we fixed all that stuff up and picked up the litter, all of our flashlights went dead at the same time. And we didn't have a clue what that was. We were all banging on our flashlights. We just put new batteries in them. They should have lasted 7 miles. And we turned them off real quick because those old batteries in those days, if they went dead and you turned the light off and waited a couple hours, you could get a little light back out of them for a while.
A little charge, right?
Yeah, so that's what we did, and we got down the hill. And that's why I asked him. After the Army, I became this hermit. Here's probably one of the creepiest nights. I was learning how to be a survivalist. And so I was sleeping under a tree a ways away from a real quiet part of the river, under a huge tree to stop the rain. And so just as I was I made me a little fire. And in those days, I chopped my firewood by whacking big branches that had fallen down off the trees against another tree. Millions millions do that, I'm sure. It works really good. I just whack it as hard as I could, whack, 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 whack. And then maybe half hour later or so, there's a whack, whack. I remember going, and it sounded exactly like me breaking my firewood on the tree. And I remember almost hollering, just talking out, hey, buddy, I don't know, we have 40 miles of river here with nobody on it, and you got to camp a couple 100 yards away from me. What in the world are you doing? And then there was a few more whacks, and I go, and if you want to break that branch, you're going to have to get one that's a little bit more punky, because that one ain't going to break. It's just not going to do it. And
you're having this conversation.
I'm just talking to the wind, yeah.
Okay.
After you've been in the hills a little while, you start talking to stuff.
I understand.
You're out there alone, you know. And so I thought, well, I'll go see what they're up to in the morning. And as I was drifting off to sleep that night, I started hearing that talking, that I can't copy any of their talking, but the big deep voice says something. I swear I heard him one time say, "Enough." And then there was a slap, and a little kid started crying. And I was ready to go over there and fight. And then I thought, it might not be a bright idea in the middle of the night and they all sounded so dang drunk. There was, like 4 or 5 voices. There was young voices. There was a higher whiny voice that's, I've heard it best described as a Japanese woman, maybe. And so I thought, I don't know how they're armed and culture and all that. And no needing people dying around here, especially me. I'll just sneak up there in the morning, maybe have a calmer discussion. So I was up like right at daylight and out of there. I figured they were camped right by my fishing hole, just having a party, getting drunk as all get out. They made noise till 3 in the morning or something. Aggravated me, kept waking me up. And when I went over there, there was no camp. And I really didn't look for trampled ground or anything. I was looking for a camp with people in it. And I waded the river later and looked all over that area around there for quite a ways, and nothing, nobody. And I just kind of wrote that off to like spooks or something, These mountains, these Wallowa Mountains up here are really haunted, according to the Nez Perce. And
okay.
So a year or so later, I was camping with some friends. That first year I got it out of my system to be alone. I mean, after 6 weeks out there alone, you're crying and talking to trees and realizing that the human race might be necessary in your life. Might have been able to work through it, but no.
Right.
But we're laying in. I like to lay in the middle of the meadows and watch the shooting stars and all kinds of things like that, and just see the sky at night. So I'm laying out there, and my friend and I can hear each other just talking. And that screaming started up on the hill. And I asked him, or I said, Colby says that's a Bigfoot up there. And he said, sounds like a banshee to me. And I replied, oh, that's comforting. So yeah, I used to hear them a lot up in those. Well, that first encounter, they just stayed up on the hill and went away. They didn't bother us. And I didn't know that they would kill and eat people. I thought that they would just run away. from any of the stuff I'd heard by then. And so all through the next 50 years, I had all kinds of things happen to me. We haven't got 5 shows to do what happened, because I did that kind of stuff every summer, all the time. I cut firewood, I started picking mushrooms commercially. That takes about 4 months. And you go up in the hills every day and you walk 10 miles all around in the hills. And mostly when I'm picking mushrooms, I can think of a few howls, or whatever you want to call them, loud calls, and mostly that talking. I'd hear a little bit of the voice every now and then. And I'd go look to see if there was people over there picking mushrooms, and there wasn't even a footprint. But our country, our land they can hide footprints pretty good. I got pretty good at that. And I wasn't looking for giant footprints.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're trying to see if there's any resemblance of people that had been around.
Right. I'm not looking for parts of giant footprints like I can find now if I just look. So, let's see, the backpacking, wood cutting as a logger, hunting and fishing. Archery hunting is where I probably had the most encounters.
What was the time though where suddenly you realized actually these things exist, that there is Bigfoot out there?
When I really was sure was last Memorial Day. Nana and I went camping. She had seen one.
All right.
And I got to tell you about that. It's kind of funny. But this is too, because we had a scary one the year before, with something beating on a tree that sounded like it was beating on a tree with a telephone pole. And supposedly said to Nana, when I was breaking the firewood and she was saying, don't do it, she heard a voice in her head say, I know where you are. Don't talk to me like a baby. And then he showed us how to do a wood knock. And there was 6 times beating on a big tree with a telephone pole, or making that noise. I don't know which one it is. And so Nana says, we were going to go pick some mushrooms on Memorial Day. I have a lot of good spots at that time, and they're out thick usually. And so she says, I want to see Bigfoot again. And I says, you're nuts. I thought we agreed not to do that. Because we're not researchers. We just go camping and doing other things, and we're in the middle of Bigfoot heaven. So we set up I found a spot. Yes, I've heard that talking up on that ridge a lot of times, and there's a hillside that is just covered with morels, and I get a creepy feeling around there a lot. And so yeah, let's go there. And I had a little idea of a little meadow alongside the end of the road, and they had trenched it out and bermed it up and threw gigantic boulders, for a quarter mile, so you couldn't get around it. And we backed in there. One thing I learned from you guys, point the truck out. And then we set up camp and sat around all afternoon. The dogs played in the swamp and the creek, and it was just a little tiny 1.5 foot wide creek, but they were having such a blast in it. And we were playing fetch and yada, yada, yada. And we sat there for a while. And about 7 p.m., the sun was starting to set. And we were on in a bowl on top of a mountain range, right? Two ridges. How's that go? Two ridges come together like that, and then there's a little bowl at the head of the draw. And then over the top of the mountain from there, I went, well, this looks like a vulnerable place, all that stuff, that people said to do, camp in a vulnerable place. And so we did all that, and I decided time to make a fire. It's getting a little bit of a chilly breeze, so I went up to the nearest tree. It had been raining for 3 days, so you had to kind of dig for tinder. And I got up, stuck my head up inside this little fir tree, and was breaking off the little tiny twigs in by the trunk that didn't get wet. And you could hear them snap, so they're going to burn. And got about a handful of them, and Nana says, "Papa, get your gun! Papa, get your gun! Get your gun! They're here! They're here!" Just freaked out as all get out. And I go, "Who's here?" She goes, "Bigfoot. He's standing right there in the road." And she looked and goes, "Well, he was, I don't know what it was." Like she said, "Well, I was staring at him to see if he had breasts." And he was about 60, 70 yards away from her. And standing with his head behind a branch coming down off a tree. So you couldn't see his face real well, but you could see the head and stuff behind the branch. And his shoulders were just below the tree branch. It had needles on it and stuff too. And just below the waist was covered by that berm. He was standing in that ditch. And his head up in the branch, and his arms were, she said, it looked like he was trying to pretend he was a tree. And so anyway, she says all that is, he was right over here in the road. So I step over and I'm walking across the meadow, peeking up that way, looking through the trees. Have you ever wondered why Bigfoot does this? I do that all the time, trying to see around the trees. See if there's any more things out there, Are there 2 deer, 3 deer? Is there another buck bigger or what, I just wonder if that ain't the reason they do that. Wow. And so I see this thing that looked like two black and white deer jumping up through the woods. And I'm looking at it going, well, there's something out there, Nana. And then it turned and went parallel, sideways. And it was, at first, there was branches, leaves on alder trees, and then there was an opening above the creek. And that was all just poles, lodgepole pines. And the right side of each one glowed white because the sun was shining on them. And that really helped me to see him going across there. And it turned, and I didn't say it exactly like this, but I said something like, "Oh, there he goes." It was something just that dumb, but it was like, there it goes. And wow. I didn't look to see if Nana was looking. The dogs were sitting at my feet. They didn't run away or hide. And It took about 3 or 4 seconds, and he just walked across there like a man with his arms swinging, long hair, semi-pointed head, and I think he had a little tiny pointy nose. Not real pointy, but like mine used to be before I got this round thing on the end of it. Must be from getting old.
Could be. Apparently your nose doesn't stop growing, or is it your ears? Your nose
Pardon?
don't stop growing.
Your ears, yeah.
Your ears,
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope it's not your nose. That would be
Yeah, it's still growing and my ear's growing, but I get this little ball. I'm getting this little ball, and I get you. Well, don't always tell Nana the truth.
Okay.
I don't want to lose an eye.
No.
No, I pretty much tell her anything. It doesn't matter.
So that sighting there confirmed it for you, or at least you realized you were seeing something that you didn't think existed.
On that sighting right there, I had chose to believe Nana when she had her sighting. And I was starting to research on YouTube and everywhere I possibly could, and looking at all the wrong things. I think, I don't know, we watched every episode of Finding Bigfoot, and the encounters in there and some of the stuff they talk about was really helpful. We watched all of Survivor Man and Todd Standing and gobbled that up, and then I found, ever so slowly, started finding these channels. I'd look up a name I saw in the chat and I'd find a channel, and so that got me to go, what else could I possibly be messing with out here but Bigfoot? But yeah, I believed, but I didn't really know. That was kind of the thing. So, but yeah, I believed really hard, and then I got to know. And I may have seen one earlier. That's a whole show's worth of trying to decipher what this thing was. And so that was, that was it. But that weekend was an amazing weekend, because right after that happened, I says, Nana, we have a 22 Magnum pistol. It will kill wolves, but it will not hurt a Sasquatch at all. She goes, bring it anyway. We'll shoot him in the eye.
Make him angry.
Right. Nana says, she says, well, he'll have a hard time eating this with one eye.
What were you learning from, I'm always interested, because when I first got into Bigfoot, I was going all over the place. I didn't know whether this thing was real or not, or, there's so many channels out there with different kind of opinions. I don't think I was really on the right path for most of the time.
At first on the channels, everything woo, I just deleted. And then I got to thinking and going, well, maybe no, actually at first I thought they were demons out of hell.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I was just playing, how can they possibly be anything else? I would have seen one. I would have snuck up on one. I low crawled up on that talking and wood knocks before and never got there. So, and then I went, I just watched this show about Northeast Oregon Bigfoot. What was it? Blue Mountain Bigfoot Association or organization. A little old couple out here that had been doing research for 4 or 5 years.
Oh, okay.
Out here, and 25 years in California and stuff. And he was an anthropologist and he wasn't into the woo, so the woo kind of went away when I was hearing explanations of how this could not be woo and still happen. And so then I was firmly deleting all woo, and then I had to go back and find places that weren't totally off the hook.
Mm-hmm.
And that's taken a year or so. And then...
So have you experienced anything woo?
Besides the orbs?
Besides the orbs and the flashlights going dead, I had a Nana having a voice in her head.
Oh, right.
The stuff I think is woo also. I mean, whenever they're around, I can feel them. And I'm no nothing special. You can just feel them. It's kind of creepy feeling. Kind of a feeling of impending doom at the worst, and as you get closer to them, it gets stronger and stronger. And I've just taken that feeling, like, oh, I ain't supposed to be here. Let's go someplace else. I don't like it here. And I can't think of anything else that I've experienced woo on other than I just can't sneak up on them. And I can sneak up on anything. So...
You're an avid hunter still, right?
Yeah, I got one last fall. I got an elk with a bow.
Right on.
My son called it in and I put an arrow through its heart, and it's delicious.
Elk is good.
And Bigfoot didn't steal it. I think they stole an elk of mine once too. So anyway, I'm going to Nana's sighting. Nana and I were going, it was 2018, 4th of July, and we were having a family reunion just outside one of our neighboring little towns, right on the edge of these Wallowa Mountains. And it was a church camp that you could rent whenever they weren't having big to-dos there. And so we rented it. We had a jillion crazy people from my family running all over the place out there, and a bunch of Idahoans, and probably 24 children from every size, from newborn to 20. And we had a water slide. There was screaming and yelling and kids playing and lots of noise. And Nana was having a blast. There was a volunteer orchard we'd parked our little motorhome in. And she was picking cherries of all kinds, the pie cherries, the Bings and the Lamberts, and I think she got them all that we could reach all around us, and I ate them till I was sick. And so then we had a really good time and ate dinner, and we went back down to our little motorhome and camp, and it was by the creek. And we turned on the air conditioner, and the little bed they have above the cab on those little motorhomes. We got up in the top of that and went to sleep and got the air conditioner blowing back in that little thing. But the kids had been playing in there earlier, and they tore down the front curtain. I went, well, heck, we're just looking at a creek out here 50 yards away in our little lawn thingy, So we don't need to fix this curtain. We just shoved it out of the way and went to sleep. And it was Nana's turn to sleep way back in by the window. So she slept back in by the window so Papa could get up and go to the bathroom 4 times a night or something, So old guys. Anyway, Nana, about 3 a.m., Nana jumped over me in that little cubby hole. She just flew over me and down onto the floor. And if you'd seen the ordeal getting her into that thing, I knew what it was, an ordeal in and out. And I just woke up and leaned over the edge like that, looked down to see what was wrong. And Nana was looking out the front window, and she rubbed her eyes and looked back, and I said, "You okay?" She goes, yeah, I'm okay. Do you need to go to the bathroom or something? Do you need help? And she goes, no, I'm okay. I'm just going to sleep down here. And she wasn't going to tell me what was going on because, well, I tended to laugh at that kind of stuff. And the next morning I get up and she's already up, and Seven Pearls will never get her on, but she is phenomenal. She is so shy. I can't get her to a party with more than 3 people. We had all those people up there, and she stayed in the motorhome all the time. Something about her anxiety. Anyway, she says, Papa, after you get your coffee, would you go out front and look and see if any of those cherry tree leaves could possibly look like Sasquatch eyes in the moonlight? And I'm going, yeah, sure, okay. There's a full moon, and cherry tree leaves are kind of oval shaped. And so I went around, just stepped out and looked around the front of the motorhome and back in, and Nana, which cherry trees? She says, the ones right up against the front window, the ones that are practically touching the front window. And I said, Nana, there ain't no cherry tree for 50 yards. They're off to our sides. They're clear down by the creek, but there ain't nothing but a lawn there. And, it was a really bright moon, I think clear full that night. And so she might even be able to recognize the face for a drawing. But it looked a lot like some of the ones, you got 3 pictures of Bigfoot on the Bigfoot Odyssey logo.
Oh, yeah.
It looked kind of like one of those. She saw one of those pictures finally. She goes, there he is. That's him.
Mm.
So
that's interesting. There's a one on there that a couple of people I know look at it and think it's very similar to something that they've seen.
Yeah. So, yeah, I still laughed at her. And she wouldn't talk about it for a couple years after that. So it was like 2020 before we started, I think we were watching that How to Hunt guy, because he always pops up. Well, I like the hunting videos, we fired the cable company. So I was watching hunting videos, and I went, well, let's see if this guy from British Columbia comes on or knows what he's doing. And I clicked it on there, and he was saying something like, and you low-life scumbags that laugh at your loved ones for saying they saw one of these things, owe them a big apology. And so I looked over at Nana and I said, you really saw one, didn't you? Because, she sat there and binge-watched every episode of Finding Bigfoot until I was sick of looking at black and white images of people in the dark.
It becomes an obsession, doesn't it? And I don't just mean obsession, but kind of like addiction, or
Yes. I'm looking for 2 things. Is the dang thing real, or am I nuts? Prove to me one or the other.
Right. And with memory being so fallible, it's one of those things that people, you're just misremembering, or it's easy for others that haven't gone through an encounter of any kind to just blow things off, or oh, you saw a bear. And you've had experiences in Alaska, so and in Oregon. They have bears in Oregon as well. So a lot of times it's almost a dismissive attitude a lot of people take when they listen to these encounters, and so it makes it very difficult for people wanting to share. Like Nana, she probably had a lot more she wanted to say and then just clammed up. It causes people to shut down.
It does. Yeah. I mean, I know how I feel about it. If I think you're going to laugh at me, go somewhere else. I don't care. You're not going to break my heart, but I'm not going to talk to you.
Right. And I think the more that people share their experiences, and like you said about the woo side of things, there's a lot of people, like you said, that just dismiss things just because it doesn't follow a narrative that they're used to or that they're familiar with. And there's a lot of that uncomfortableness with information and things that we don't understand. And it tends to shut conversations down a lot as well. And I think there's so much that we don't know that we need to learn a lot more from everyone. And everyone's perspective is very valuable, and they come from different sides. And like you saw the orbs, and how old were you? About 15?
16, yeah.
16, okay. And so like that was really young, but then after that you had a life to live. You went into the military, and it's easy to kind of have these experiences and kind of shoving them to the background, and then when you recall it back, people are like, well, you're just misremembering. But no, there's something solid there.
Yeah, I put it in a little folder with some of the other stuff I can't figure out, and go, well, somewhere I'll see something sometime that explains that one. And a lot of times in your life you go, oh, that's what that was,
Right.
Like, oh, that was a wolverine. Oh, oops.
Right. Yeah.
Probably.
It's like hearing that chatter or that talk out there, like when I heard it on the river, it sounds like someone actually having a conversation. Like you can tell they're communicating. You just can't distinguish what they're saying. It's like it's a different language. Like you said, I thought they were either Russian or native. And again, I also thought they had to be drunk because of where they were, like, and the whistling and the carrying on and the loud and the, it's like, and you're on fishing season. It's like all those things you kind of go, wait a minute.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of melodrama in their voice, like drunk people do,
Yeah.
And they do have a voice. You can tell it from anybody else. The big male's got something nasal in their voice that I can't explain it, but you can't miss it when you hear it again. You go, oh, that's not people.
Right.
And it's kind of in the whoops. And
yeah. And there's a lot of people that hear children in the forest at night. I've had that experience out in the middle of Talkeetna, and you're like, no one is going to let their kids run around out here at 2 or 3 in the morning. Like, no, who's doing this?
Right. But yeah, it's just their Sunday afternoon, So that, yeah, that's pretty funny.
Yeah. So when Nana told you, and you kind of like laughed it off, and even though you had the experiences in your background, you were just kind of like, well, whatever it is, I'm sure you saw something, but that's what a lot of people get. Oh, I'm sure you believe what you saw. That seems to be a lot of comments. And so her sincerity, I mean, your wife, that's where a lot of these things, when you're talking to someone and them, like you truly know this person and they're expressing their experience. That's where a lot of people that weren't believers become believers, because of the person that is exchanging this experience with them, because they know them so well. It's not like they're going to be making this up. And emotions are hard to pretend. Like you can't, I don't know, like when people choke up and things like that you can't fake crackle voices and things like that. Like there's certain things you just can't do. And so when you had that moment with her, did you share your past experiences with her at all, or?
I never talked to him about I never talked about this subject with anybody since that field trip. Or no, I talked about it a little bit with some of my camping friends. I told them my experiences. Especially the guy, he was a really good friend of mine. He was a Sioux, a Lakota Sioux, and he taught me a lot about hunting, fishing, tracking, and how to walk without your head doing this. Doing the it's easier to, you can see more stuff, more game and stuff, and they see you less. And how to walk quietly by putting the ball or your foot down first. And
Well, look, let's talk about structures a little bit. I mean, what's your thoughts on what these structures are about?
I think Bigfoot built them. I think Sasquatch built them.
Okay.
But I don't think they build all of them they see. I can't figure out how 10 men could put up one of these 50-foot teepees with 2,000 pound, 1-ton logs making this 50-foot, it's 50 foot at the cross. They're giant.
These trees are heavy. I mean, it's no joke, is it? Even, if Bigfoot's supernatural, I don't even think one on its own could possibly.
Yeah, then you try and stand up a 70-foot tree and lean it over. 10 guys can't do that. I mean, you could if you had lots of ropes and pulleys and. But why? I mean, I don't even know if anybody had a tarp big enough to put around them for a big hunting camp or something. I figured some sort of crazy hunters put them up. But I couldn't figure out how.
I mean, it is possible, isn't it? Ropes and pulleys. I mean, this is how it is done. But why would they do it in that place? What would be the purpose? And some of these smaller structures wouldn't even fit a Bigfoot in them. I mean, I don't see them as a shelter. I don't see them as a just even. I mean, I don't know. I'm very
I don't see them either because they were made. They're not smooth around, right? Like if you put a cover over them, it would just be all wadded up and goofy. And I mean, I lived in a teepee for a while. You got to get that, structure really smooth. And so I have no idea what it is. But these hoops, these tree bends. I watch them make themselves. Now we're talking about trees knocking themselves, trees making their own structures. And I have watched the trees make their own bendovers. For some reason, a tree gets a disease or something like that, gets something wrong with it. In the spring, it'll soak up more water than all the other trees around it. Or it'll be in a kind of swampy area in the spring. And they'll soak up so much water that the branches up in the top get really, really heavy. The wood gets really malleable and squishy. And I've had to cut them out of the road. That's how I found out the top was so heavy. Because they'll just bend over in the road in front of me. And I just watch them bend more and more every day till I got to cut them out of the road. And then they'll go clear down to the ground, and then the snow and stuff will shove that tip into the ground over the winter.
Yeah.
But I've also heard Native Americans used them to mark the trail, and I still don't know how a Bigfoot would make one of those bigger things unless he found a tree that was mushy like that. Because if you bend a tree over like that, you're going to break it.
Yeah, and even mushers still to this day use tripods and different tree markings and stuff for trails in Alaska. Like that is a standard, trail marking because it's something will be there, and it's really incredible. Like the entire Iditarod Trail is marked with tripods, and that's they bring those poles together, and they're massive. In the summertime they look huge, but in the wintertime when all that snowpack gets on, you're up at the top of those things. But it's still really interesting how a lot of those markers were used, and maybe that's something that they're doing that we're just not understanding. And like you said, there's a lot of things that we're looking at that don't have anything to do with it, and it just happens to be there. Like I've watched that in Alaska where the trees bend and stuff, but that's easy to explain, like with the snow load and all of that stuff. But when you're in areas where there is no snow and it's really dry and things, and they're weaving into each other, and there's these patterns that seem consistent, I find that intriguing.
Right. And I think they do the tree breaks. I think they'll snap a top of a tree over. And I think that just means I went this way, Clem. They're not talking to us. Mm-hmm. They're talking to each other.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? They're not messages for us, are they? The messages. Why would we think they are going to communicate with us? We kind of put ourselves into their shoes quite a bit. This kind of thinking they're half human. Do they really think like us in some ways? It just makes you think. But I think it's common sense. It has to be a bit of common sense, doesn't it, with these things? Some people say these the pinned arches are a direction for water. Now, I don't know any other creature that needs a signpost to find water. It doesn't make sense, does it? Why on earth this elusive creature can, tiptoe out of the forest like a, silent fairy, and yet can't find water, and it needs a pinned arch? I don't know. It's the location of these things as well. Why is another Bigfoot going to see what there is there?
Right, unless they're traveling out of their zones and
this. One thing I've noticed is we have like vast area, and my son and I have hunted together for 20 years, and we never talked about it. But we can get separated by miles and miles just by going down two different fingers.
Easy.
And so, yeah, some sort of, if we get back up on the trail, say, off of those fingers, and we want to know, did my boy make it out? Did I make it out? We will leave a stick on the trail that's a half an arrow head, and it's only just for us and nobody else. It should just look like a piece of stick to somebody else, but we know what it means.
Okay.
And it's but it's also in a place where we knew each other went,
Yeah.
So there was that kind of that, and I know these Sasquatch around here got 20-30 mile range of a circuit they might do or not do or whatever they feel like, but you'll find them one day here and the next day 10 miles away. My buddies will say, hey, things were around camp last night. That's since I've known about them, but I could never figure out what was pushing trees over at me. We'd be walking back on this. I would be walking alone at night, 5 miles back from, trying to kill an elk with a bow. And sometimes I've done it with a limp, and sometimes I've done it with a limp covered in blood, deer blood or elk blood, right? Or maybe even mine if I fell down the hill. And I would hear a little ticking noise. I got this from like a Bigfoot anthropologist. he was showing me in a video, showing us in a video, walking along, and there's this little tick, tick, tick in the bushes by him. He goes, "Yeah, they're paralleling me. Can you hear that little click or clack or tick or?" Well, it sounds like one of those wrens. It's not a nuthatch. I've got that sorted out, Iron Dogger. It's a nuthatch. It's not a nuthatch. I'll never get that right.
Okay.
The nuthatch got the bad press on the first try, and I can't get it out of my head. But it's a little wren that'll do that. And I would go in.
That makes it.
Yeah.
Mm.
And you can go stick your head, look at the branches, and he'll be sitting in there not afraid of you, ticking at you. But these ticks were like, you stop, they stop. You go, they go. And it could be also just hitting a stick on a tree, just a little stick. It could be that too. But it sounds exactly like that wren. So,
Oh, interesting.
I would hear that a lot. I don't know, a couple of times a year. And then maybe every other year, or 3 times 1 year, and none for 3 or 4. This one trail I like to walk back. This is massive country to hunt, so we walk that trail, and you can peel off and go to a jillion different huge places. And so every when I would hear that, often I would get back to camp. And I'd get really close to camp, and one of these big, gigantic 2 or 3 foot dead snags would come. You'd hear the crack, boom, right on the ground, and of course that'll make you jump about 5 feet and turn around, and so.
Do you ever go and look for the trees that have fallen? Has
Yeah.
anybody ever? Yeah. Are they a particular type? Are they rotten? Are they, are they...
They're dead with a rotten bottom, but there's enough, you can see that it broke enough good wood that something had to have pushed it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So it came down with
Right.
force.
Broke it off the roots, yeah. Doesn't, and some of, broke it off. All of those seem to be broken off the roots. Can't say that for sure, but there's lots of them in our forest. We have bugs that kill things, and
Yeah.
And we have, big trees too, but they were anywhere from 10 inches to 3 feet in diameter.
Mm.
And that happened more than once. Like, it's one thing to hear a tree fall once while you're out there, but to hear them fall a few times.
Yeah, that right there by camp and all that, that's happened about 10 times over 20 years.
Mm.
Like I said, a few times 1 year, and then nothing. Not even a hint of Sasquatch for a whole month or 6 weeks, and I've had that happen for years and years on end.
I kind of think about these, this wood, this knocking trees over. If it was like something that they did all the time, we would have no trees left, would they? They'd be knocking these things over all the time. So that's like a selective reason why they push a tree over. If they are pushing trees over, there must be a reason why they do, and it's not all the time, because like I say, you'd find devastating. I would think so. So these structures, are they taking trees down to build them, or are they out there finding trees? Are they taking the branches off? Because a lot of these don't have branches, do they? They seem to be like totally clear logs. So, I mean, are they cleaning these things up? It's just, this is the problem. There's so many questions and no answers.
Absolutely.
My wildest guess, since it was always right above me and the tip would land about 50 yards above me, they would get out ahead of me and find one of these things that they could push over. Because we have some trees over there. I'd be surprised if Bigfoot could push over.
Mm.
And I think they wait till I'm right there and push them over to scare the crap out of me because maybe I messed up their elk hunt or walked by their kids, or I don't know why they would do that.
But
They
they
even
don't want to hurt you, do they?
no, they had every chance to kill me, and I made them mad enough too because I could hear them screaming at me, you know, and I was alone in the dark, 15 miles from a road. Yeah, they would. They could have killed me.
If anything, they're good warners, aren't they?
Yeah,
It's just whether or not people are listening to them as a
yeah.
warning. Because you've had plenty. It sounds like, and
Right.
there's plenty of times they could have gone, "This is it, the last one," and then you're gone. But they haven't. It just makes you wonder where how they react, why they're reacting. And, are they frightened a lot of the time that they give out these warnings? Because generally it's through fear, isn't it? That my dog, when she gets frightened, she'll start showing her teeth. She's nervous. She's, warning you. And I just think, is it, some of that going on? We'll
That's
never know. We'll never know.
No, and there's so
Right.
many people
Also, it could be that the teenagers just like to scare the daylights out of us. I know they do. I know they do. The last camping trip where Nana and I had them around us all weekend, I could tell the teenagers maybe they were a little younger. I don't know. This was Nana's idea that I think it's the kids messing with us. I don't think it's that big one from the beginning, but they come up and do whoops and wood knocks, and they would try and see who could sneak closest to the camp without getting seen, and those little kid games like that. And my dogs would be laying on the ground and they could see their feet underneath all this stuff, or smell them or whatever. But the dogs, I'd look down and I go, the dogs, look at the dogs, Nana. Somebody's trying to sneak up on us again. And, we were just out in a place. There wasn't any people for 5 miles, at least,
Mm.
So now when you guys,
Sorry. Go on.
So now when you guys go out together camping, you have a different experience. Like you go at it a little differently, and you kind of are more open to what Nana has to say to you, it seems like.
Oh, yeah, about Bigfoot, yeah. I've always had to be open about everything else. Like, where do you want to fish, Nana? You're the fisherman. she catches more fish than me, and I did it for a living.
Look, we've come to the end of our hour, but it's been fascinating talking to you, and we need to carry this on. We need to go to a part 2 because
Okay.
could talk Sasquatch with you all day. Because there is so many questions, isn't there? It's just, it's never ending. And the crossover of like, what is Bigfoot and what is just natural stuff going on? Would love to be able to separate that, but it's so difficult, isn't it? Because we don't know what's doing what and if these things mimic. I don't know. We could just go on and on about it, basically. Forever.
And on and
Yeah.
on. But it's just a fascinating how many different encounters that people have, whether it's terrifying, like Seven Pearls had an extremely terrifying incident. And it would be hard for someone that had something like that, imagine that they can be kind and that they don't have, like some kind of evilness to them, and I can understand that there's all this confusion out there. But I really do see that the more that people come and share, the more that we learn. And I really thank you, Papa, for sharing this stuff with us, because there's a lot out there that we just don't know.
Right. And I just want to put it out there for people to argue about if they want. I wasn't. Maybe we'll solve it.
Right. Maybe. And also, let me just mention the Encounter Hub is a place where people can come and talk about their experiences without being on YouTube, without it being recorded, without anything getting out there for anybody. It's just for those who want to come and share with other folks, like Nana maybe, who doesn't want to, is quite shy. The Encounter Hub's a great place to come and share your stuff and your thoughts, or just come and listen, But if anyone wants to come to the Encounter Hub this week, I think it's going to be on a Thursday. Email me, Daniela@hiddenexistence.com. And if you want to come on here on, Bigfoot Odyssey, Sunday Conversations, Sunday Encounters, Wednesdays, whatever day you want to come on, yourbfstory@gmail.com. Get in touch and we will sort something out. And, we really do appreciate anybody who will come forward. It doesn't just help other people, it might help you just to come and share and offload, your thoughts and feelings, or even your encounter, your experiences. It is good to share with other people. It works. It's a win-win situation, I think, and it also encourages other people to come forward. So once again, thank you, Papa C.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you to everybody in the chat. I'm sorry for missing any questions tonight, but we will all catch up again very, very soon. We'll be back on Tuesday for Drawing Bigfoot. Until then, everyone, have a great night. Good night.
Have a good night.